At the beginning of the Old Testament, there is a story of an empty womb. Given the age of the old couple, Abraham and Sarah, an empty womb would come as no surprise to anyone. But there is an added difficulty in the fact that Sarah has always been barren. In spite of this, the old couple live in hope of having their own child one day, because the promise of God has led them to believe that this is possible. And they make the promise of God their daily bread, nourishing their fond hope that one day they will be parents of a child. One day, 3 visitors arrive, and they're carriers of the most precious news, that God is a keeper of promises, and Sarah will have a child in her old age, because God will visit her in a special way. The response to this long-awaited news is laughter. When Sarah hears the announcement from her hiding place behind the door, she laughs. There is this marvelous image of a woman who has been a petitioner to God for years, with her apron up to her mouth, laughing through her false teeth at the idea of herself as a mother at last. Sarah can laugh at the idea of a baby being born, not in the maternity ward, but in the geriatric ward. She can laugh at delight in the prospect of an old, empty cradle being occupied at last. Laughter is really a good response to the fulfillment of the promise of God, that the couple will have a son, not out of necessity or medical ingenuity, but because of the ability of God to do the humanly impossible. It is divine comedy. Sarah gets the joke, and she conceives and gives birth to the promise of God. Not surprisingly, when her son is born, he is called Isaac, which in Hebrew means laughter. The promise has become flesh and taken shape in the bundle of a baby. There is rejoicing that God has indeed visited his people, that without the great family of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then what God had promised would not have gotten started. God made their beginning, for nothing is impossible to God. At the beginning of the New Testament is the story of an empty womb as well. Matthew and Luke open their Gospels celebrating how God visits his people in the birth of Jesus. A young Jewish girl called Mary is chosen to be the mother of the Son of God. Now, there is no suggestion that Mary, like Sarah, the elderly barren woman in the Old Testament, is longing and praying for a child of her own. There is no suggestion that Mary, like Sarah, is old and barren. Mary is a young virgin, but just as old age and barrenness are not barriers to the plan of God, neither is youth or virginity. Why? Nothing is impossible with God. In the Gospel of Matthew, Mary's virginity is important because it points us to the truth of who her child is. So the child will be holy and will be called Son of God. Having a child is not Mary's idea. It is God's. As John puts it eloquently in his gospel, Jesus is born not out of human stock, or urge of the flesh, or will of man, but of God himself. Being the mother of Jesus is not something Mary can arrange for herself. It is something arranged by God. The child Jesus does not come as an answer to her longing and prayer, but it comes as the new creation of God. In being the mother of Jesus, Mary does the same as any mother, nurturing within her womb the great process of a little one taking shape. Another human being is formed in the mother's body, but the mother can never keep the child within her. Motherhood means not only having a baby, but letting go of the baby. Birth is not possessive. It's letting another life take its rightful place in the world. Birth is the act of painful separation, when the mother must let her child go for the first time. And as every mother knows, giving birth is only the first of many times when mothers have to let go. Parents cannot have their children all the time, for the time comes when they must foster not only their presence, but foster their going. Trust them to make their own lives in their own way. That is something which Mary has to do, not only to nurture Jesus in his growing, but eventually let him go his way to make his appointed future. Jesus is Mary's son. He is her own, but not her own. He belongs to her, but also to many. Mary has to do what the Father did: let go of his beloved Son. He loved the world so much that he sent his only Son. And that's what Mary does. She does not anxiously clutch Jesus to herself, but gives him to us. It's so clear in the picture of Our Lady Perpetual Help, the manner in which she holds him. She's not grasping him, she's inviting us to take him. She asks us to do what she does. Share Jesus with everyone. Give him as life to others.